Good afternoon, Jennifer Johnson-Hanks, who is the Executive Dean of the College of Letters and Sciences and a faculty member in the Department of Demography and Sociology. I'm also joined by Professor Michael Liu, who's the Dean of the School of Public Health, and by Linda Burton, who's the Dean of the Berkeley Social Welfare and the Eugene and Rose Kleiner Chair for the Study of Processes, Practices, and Policies in Aging. And last but certainly not least, we are joined by Sejul Goyal, who's a sophomore and a Berkeley Changemaker student. So to start this discussion, I've always been impressed by the Berkeley Changemaker program. It's been around for a year. It's already educated 2,500 students in the Berkeley Changemaker course. And it now has a set of 12 courses that are aligned with the Berkeley Changemaker program that satisfy breadth requirements in many disciplines. This summer alone, 450 students completed the Berkeley Changemaker course, and it's on its way to becoming part of the spirit and ethos of Berkeley in a way that was always there, but we never quite captured it. The three pieces to it are communication, collaboration, and critical thinking, and how those three qualities and skills can change your life, and that they're fundamental to being part of the Berkeley student. So to get the conversation going, my first question for all the panelists is, what is it about you that we would never know from reading your CV? And so I'll start with Michael, who has a very long and distinguished CV, as does Jenna and Linda.
Right, the one thing that you're not going to see in my CV, well, I'm the son of two immigrant parents who never went to college. In fact, my mom never went to high school or even junior high. See, my mom was only 11 when her father died. So as the oldest girl in the family, she had to drop out of 5th grade to go work in a sweatshop to help support the family. So when I was born, my parents were still pretty poor. My first home was this tiny little apartment on the other side of the tracks in Taipei, where a family of 6 was crammed into. No running water, no flush toilet, health insurance. We didn't have health insurance because there weren't such things as health insurance back then. So whenever you get sick, and unfortunately I was sick a lot as a child, that you just never know how much the doctor or the medicine was going to cost. And from time to time, my parents had to make that difficult choice between paying for food and paying for medicine. And at one point, my mom sold her wedding ring to pay for my medicine. And I guess I share that story because it probably explains a lot about what I ended up doing with my life, which is to work hard every day to give every child, no matter where they're from, where the family they're born into, or the color of their skin, to give every child a fair shot at reaching their fullest potential. The kind of fair shot that my mom never got, and the kind of fair shot that too many kids, both in this country and around the world, still will never get. So when we talk about health equity or social justice in public health, these are not abstract concepts to me. It's personal. It's always been my mission, my North Star, driving my life's work. And so that's something that you're not going to see in my CV.
Thank you, Michael. Jenna?
Michael, that was just such a compelling and moving story. And you speak so effectively and importantly about what the mission that we all share. You come to it so authentically. And I just really appreciate your sharing that story that about really why all of us are here, why Berkeley is such a special place, and that you have been able to do such important work on behalf of those who need it and deserve it. And that's just really beautiful. I don't have such an interesting story, but something that doesn't appear in my CV is where I come from, which is I was born and raised in Ketchikan, Alaska. When I bring my kids home to be with my family, we have 16 pairs of extra tough boots lined up outside the door. So that's something that you wouldn't necessarily know from my CV.
Thank you, Jenna. And Linda?
Yes. Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate this question because it allows us to be able to share with you that there are many pathways to being successful and being a change maker in the kind of work we do. Now, if you were to look at my CV looks very, very linear. It looks like it's well timed, on point. It looks like I did not miss a beat. You would expect this CV from someone who totally was driven by work alone. But let me share with you, that is not even close. To begin, I want to share with you that I got married at the tender age of 18. For those students in the audience, I am not at all recommended that you do that necessarily as a pathway to success. But I want to also share with you that in my sophomore year of college, I had my first kid. My junior year of college, I had the second kid. And in graduate school, I had two more. So I had four children going totally through undergraduate and graduate school. Now, as you can imagine, when you have that many kids and you've married that early on, you're probably broke as a joke most of the time. And in that context, necessity, you see that necessity is definitely the mother of invention. And for me, that invention involved how do you generate enough financial capital to get through graduate school? So, what you will not see on my CV is that I had a very short and successful career as a game show contestant. What I was able to do is all that knowledge I was getting in graduate school, theory construction, philosophy and science, Boolean algebra, I used it to analyze game shows and figure out where they were getting their questions from. And then I would go and study that and then go and try out for those game shows. So just to give you an idea of the game shows I've successfully been on, The Price is Right. Yeah, I got to come on down, Dream House, and The Joker's Wild.
Wow. And for our last panelist, Sejul, can you tell us what people would not see in your CV?
Definitely. Well, my CV is nowhere near as impressive as the other panelists on here. I think one thing you would not see on my CV is that everything that is on there is because of my mother and my father and the sacrifices that they have made for me and for my sisters. That's it.
Thank you. Our next question is for Jenna, and it's can you tell us what led you to the Berkeley campus from Alaska?
Well, I came to the Berkeley campus twice. I first came as an undergrad. I was an out-of-state transfer student. And so that was in 1992. And I came, I was looking for some place that I could study anthropology, which was and remains one of my core passions. And I was only looking at public schools because that was a financial necessity for our family. And so I was looking at all of those that have wonderful anthropology programs. And Berkeley just has this extraordinary, exceptional feel that is different than any place else. And it comes in all sorts of ways. So you arrive on the Berkeley campus and you immediately see students who are advocating for things that are important to them, this feel of opportunity and possibility and just a great deal of energy. So that's why I came the first time. And then I came the second time, right as I was finishing my PhD. I was looking for jobs and I had the opportunity to come back. And when I came for my job interview, it was in January. And back then it used to rain sometimes. And the campus had this just glorious, familiar smell of eucalyptus. And it's just impossible to stay away. So of course I was enchanted for the opportunity to come back.
Thank you. And my next question is for Michael. what is the Berkeley Changemaker to you, and how are you seeing it resonate across campus?
Yeah, well, I can't speak for the rest of the campus, but certainly it resonates with so much with students and faculty and staff at the School of Public Health, right? And I think most of our students come to Berkeley because they want to help change the world. They want to help make the world a better place. And public health is all about fighting for a better world, right? It's all about fighting for clean air and water. It's about fighting for health equity and social justice, about fighting for health as a right and healthcare for all. It's about fighting for the social conditions in which everyone can be healthy, which is the very definition of public health. And so if you are going to work in public health, by definition, you have to be a change maker. You have to be willing to roll up your sleeves, reimagine the new world, and be willing to fight for it.
Thank you. And my next question is for Linda. How do you feel the Berkeley Changemaker is propelled by Berkeley's distinctive values, not those of having 5 protests on the first day of instruction of the fall semester?
Well, again, Oliver, that is a great question. And in many ways, I see a number of features in play. First and foremost, the notion of the common good. I mean, we're a state institution, and that's what we are all about. And I know that's the spirit in which the Changemaker program is developed as well. Innovation is also critical, here we see it, and as well as excellence. In many ways, what I do see looking further down the road is that the Changemakers program, in essence, will help Berkeley to realize its mission with respect to the interdisciplinary nature of science and practice. So I see that nexus between Changemakers and Berkeley's values and aspirations.
Thank you. I see the same, actually. I even see it in my own work. It's really a beautiful framework for trying to make change in the world. And also, I also appreciate that you can have all the critical thinking skills in the world, but if you can't collaborate with people, they're not going to go anywhere. And if you can't communicate them, they're not even going to be remembered. And so those things are having those 3 skills together and having our students remember that right from the get-go, I think is so important. My next question is for Michael. And this builds on your earlier answers, actually, in a wonderful way. And I've always, I just want to take this opportunity, I've really admired how your leadership of the School of Public Health throughout this pandemic. In the beginning, you focused us all on communicating and on helping each other out. And I think that message resonated for many of us. And then your very moving statement about Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders was really very, very powerful and heard by many. So thank you. My question is, what have we learned from COVID, and why is change making in public health more important than ever?
Thanks so much, Oliver. And before I answer that question, I know your remark about the protests were tongue-in-cheek, but I think that also can speak to a certain ethos, certain culture at Berkeley, the tradition of questioning authority, challenging conventional wisdom, or shaking up the status quo. I think that's all part of being a change maker as well. Now, in terms of what we learned from COVID, I think COVID has shown us that we still have a lot of work to do in public health and in the world, right? We got more than half the country and more than 85% of the world's population that still need to get vaccinated. We got a broken public health system and a broken healthcare system that need to get fixed. We got deeply entrenched institutionalized racism that drives so much of our health disparities in this country that need to get dismantled. And we got these big global existential threats, from climate change to pandemic outbreaks, from chronic diseases to social inequality, that require public health to be front and center in driving solutions. So I might be biased, but I actually cannot think of anything more consequential than what together we're going to do in public health in the coming decade. And so that's why, I think COVID has shown us that big changes are needed in public health and in the world, and we certainly need a lot more public health change makers to help change the world.
And so just as a follow-up to that, how is the School of Public Health integrating change making into its curriculum? And is it helping to sharpen how the School of Public Health is understood relative to the other schools of public health in the country?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very important differentiation strategy for us. And that's because most schools of public health don't teach change making very well. And I actually saw that firsthand when I was a federal executive at the Obama administration, got to work with thousands of public health professionals across the country, including some of the graduates from some of the top schools of public health in the nation. And they can do a statistical analysis like nobody's business. But there was definitely kind of tools and skills that were missing from their toolbox that prevented them from being as effective a public health change maker as they can. And so when I became dean chair, one of my top priorities was to transform Berkeley into the best school of public health for public health change makers. Which actually requires more than just providing a world-class education in the 5 core public health sciences like epidemiology and biostatistics, right? It requires a whole new set of tools and skills like leadership and management, communication and collaboration, strategic thinking and community organizing, and policy and advocacy, and much, much more for you to be able to bring about the kind of change that we want to see in the world, and whether that's organizational change, systems change, community change, societal or global change. So it's definitely a work in progress. So we're beginning to define what those public health change-making competencies are. We're beginning to think about how do we integrate these competencies into our core curriculum. We're planning an undergraduate connector course in public health. We are developing more advanced graduate level electives, as well as these like weekend micro courses, so that we can make these public health change making skills and tools a lot more accessible to students. And certainly, a lot of these things are not something, I don't think change making is something that you can just learn sitting in a classroom. So it's about praxis. It's about how do we take what we learn in the classroom and apply it to to the real world. And so we're kind of working on strengthening our internship to make sure that we fully integrate the practice of these change-making tools and skills into the student experience as well. So these are kind of some of the things that we're working on right now. It's a work in progress. They'll certainly have to get a lot more faculty support and a lot more financial support to do this. But at least that's my vision, as to, over the next few years, to make Berkeley the best change maker school of public health in the world.
Thank you. And my next question is for Linda. And it asks, how does the school, how does social welfare and the School of Social Welfare integrate with the Berkeley Changemaker?
Again, thank you for that question. And I will start out by saying that I am a sociologist. My degrees are not in social welfare, but I've done a lot of work on the ground with families who live on the margins. And through the grace and privilege of being able to be the dean of the School of Social Welfare for the last several years, this is what I have come to know about social welfare. First and foremost, I do believe that social welfare is center stage in how we think about change making. Social welfare focuses on building human capital And it also focuses on building institutional capital. It is invested in the well-being of whole societies, as well as those who are on the margins. Social welfare is also anchored in values and aspirations that are directly in line with how we think about change makers. First and foremost, let's consider intellectual and cultural humility and the integration of the diversity ideas in a collective journey to affirm justice and equity. I think those values and aspirations are at the center, are centered in the Changemakers philosophy. Also, the notion of equitable partnerships and the integration of research and practice. We see active engagement right now in our, not only in our school, but with our collaborations with Michael and the School of Public Health. We have two extraordinary faculty members, Susan Stone and Emily Ozer, who have partnered with the San Francisco Unified School District to address issues of absenteeism and equity, focusing specifically on the paradigm of integrating research and practice. And I think that's core in change-making philosophy. The third point, really I'm drawing upon some of the work that we're doing in social welfare right now, where we're going through strategic planning. And as we're, developing our mission, developing, fine-tuning our values, fine-tuning how we see our aspirations, I want to read to you one of those features that we are developing right now. And it has to do with the notion of a skillful and also strategic disruption, which we're all engaged in now. When we think of ourselves in the School of Social Welfare, we can say we are change makers who can effectively navigate within and beyond complex social systems and institutions. We work compassionately and collaboratively to build inclusive spaces, accessible services, and institutions that are responsive to communities' goals. In addition to that, some of the common features you will always see is that, like individuals who engage in change-making work, those in social welfare are dedicated to building sustainable programs in terms of building human capital and institutional capital. We also see that building these sustainable programs they're not an event, so they're not a one-off, they're a journey. And anyone who is seriously engaged in change-making always sees their work as a journey. So those are just a few features of commonality with what social welfare is about and what the Changemakers program is about.
Thank you very much. Just as a quick follow-up question, the School of Social Welfare, how many faculty does it have, and what are some of your programs?
In the School of Social Welfare, we have faculty. We have Senate faculty, and we have roughly about 14 Senate faculty. And we also have our field faculty, and we have roughly 9 to 10 of our field faculty. And what you see is, in terms of me describing faculty, is the representation we have between research and practice. We are working and striving very hard to make sure those are integrated within our school so that we provide the premier excellent education for our students at the undergraduate, master's, and the PhD level.
Thank you. And my next question is for Jennifer Johnson-Hanks, and who's the Executive Dean of the College of Letters and Sciences, which is, it's the largest college on the Berkeley campus. So looking out 2 or 3 years, what might happen with first-year cohort programming, and what role might the Berkeley Changemaker play in first-year programming? And if you could let us know how many students that would involve, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Oliver. Yeah, as Oliver says, the College of Letters and Science is the largest college on the Berkeley campus. We have over 800 faculty and 23,000 undergraduates. And with 23,000 undergraduates, that is both an enormous strength and a challenge for us. That our students are some of the most spectacular, interesting, creative thinkers that I can imagine. They do incredible work and achieve incredible things. And there are so many of them that sometimes they feel a little oddly or paradoxically a little isolated or anomic. It's hard for us to provide the kind of comprehensive, rich experiences and sense of cohort that we would like to offer them, that they deserve and they merit. So that trying to think through how do we offer the excellent education that we believe in and that they deserve at scale, it is a challenge. So one of the things that we've been exploring, that we're beginning to think about, it's still in very early days, much earlier than the early days that Michael is talking about in public health. We're beginning to think through, are there ways for us to offer cohort-based experiences for our first-year students, where students would have their coursework with some of the spectacular Berkeley faculty that teach here in smaller groups. How that's going to work is still very much in discussion, and one of the strengths and weaknesses of Berkeley, as Linda and Michael both know, is that deans actually don't have decision rights over these things. We can make suggestions, we can offer ideas, but it really is a process, a change-making process of engagement and collaboration in order to make any of these things happen. But what I'm hoping is that we'll be able to think through, how do our students take their courses in smaller groups where they have more than just one course with the same group of students, and where those courses can be organized around some kind of themes. That this would be an opportunity for students. We would invite them if they chose to participate in these cohorts, but certainly not mandatory. Another deep Berkeley rule is that you don't make rules. that we offer opportunities, but that some students will not choose this. So Changemaker for us there are many important ways of thinking about it. Right now, the way that the College of Letters and Science is most directly engaging is thinking of it as a way of organizing education for students, for those students who choose to think of them, who choose to organize their education around this principle, where it might, for us, be one of several different principles around which students would have the opportunity to organize. I think I'm going to pause there. And
sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jenna. And my next question is for Sejul Goyal, and it's who was a student, a Berkeley Changemaker student and a sophomore. And so could you let us know what impact the Berkeley Changemaker has had on you as a student, and maybe tell us your experiences in the Berkeley Changemaker course, because I think many people listening to this conversation will have not had the opportunity to take the course.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Oliver. Yeah, I think it's really hard to point out how exactly the Berkeley Changemaker has impacted me, because to be really honest, it has literally shaped every aspect of my college experience, from how I look at classes to how I interact with people on campus. So Dean Michael, Dean Jenna, and Dean Linda mentioned earlier so many important issues that need to be addressed in this world. And I think, of course, I knew about all those issues in high school, but I truly realized while I was taking the Berkeley Changemaker course, how passionate people are about these issues and how you can find solutions if you really want to. How, like the older generations really want to support my generation in helping, to find these issues, but as long as we take the initiative and as long as we are equipped with the tools of, how to take these initiatives. So in fact, like the Berkeley Changemaker even led me to working on my own startup to try and combat some of these issues. I will, however, try and highlight a few ways that the course has helped and impacted me the most. So I really resonated with the three elements that the course revolves around: critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. I think the course really taught me to think about these three things in unison in such an engaging manner that I often even find myself applying these learnings subconsciously. For example, even when I'm working on my startup, Track My Change, I often go back to my notes from the course whenever I'm stuck on a problem. So my startup is focused on helping social organizations quantify and notify their impact to their stakeholders effectively. What this basically means is we are trying to help every person interested in volunteering or donating to a social organization figure out the exact impact that they will be creating. And this is supposed to encourage people to donate and volunteer more because they will know exactly where their resources and their time is going, which I think is a really, really powerful thing to know about. Now, as you can imagine, implementing this idea comes with a fair share of problems. So one of my favorite course concepts that I keep going back to is thinking like a child, where I keep asking myself why until I get to the root of the problem. So I find that to be incredibly helpful amongst a lot of other course materials that we learn and course concepts that we learned. I think moreover, the community of so many like-minded change makers that we get to interact with, that this course has provided me with, is so encouraging and so inspirational that it's hard to not stay motivated with them around. And I think finally, I have to mention the amazing panelists here and how much their contributions to the course and when they came for the Changemaker chats, how much that impacted me. I remember each one of these conversations, especially with Oliver and Dean Michael, all of them really. And I remember what you guys talked about. I remember thinking about how these are such important issues to be addressed and how, if we find an effective way to address these, we might be able to leave the world a lot better and a lot safer for future generations, I think. So yeah, I think I will be wrapping up, but the Berkeley Changemaker taught me that you can address these world issues with humility and passion, and that in fact is the correct way to address these issues.
So could you talk a little bit more about the Changemaker course? Like, how is it structured? How long, how many weeks it is? Is it online? Is it in person? What are some of the special features of the course?
Definitely. So it's structured over 6 weeks, and it is in the form of different modules. So for example, every week we would be focusing on a new module, which would again revolve around the three main aspects of the course. The course was taught by some amazing faculty members, Professor Alex Budak, Professor, blanking out on all of their names right now, not sure why.
That's okay.
Basically all these amazing faculty members that interact with you throughout the course. And once you watch the videos and you engage with the modules, you also get to engage with the other, other children who are taking the course and the other students who are taking the course through discussion sections and through, hearing about how they have been trying to implement change in their lives and how, you can potentially help them implement their change. So fun fact, the startup that I mentioned earlier was actually a byproduct of my final project for the Berkeley Changemaker course. So yeah, I think those are the main components of the course. It is held over the summer. I believe before COVID hit, it was also held in person. Professor Alex Budak was running the classes, but when I took it, it was entirely online. But I truly think that the online mode of instruction was still just as impactful as I would imagine it to be in person. Because as long as you take the initiative to interact with other students, because I really do think that that is the main aspect of the course, interacting with other change makers, finding out, how they go about implementing change and learning from them, getting ideas from them. So yeah, I think that is a little bit about it. And yes, Professor Mariana Soma was a huge part of the course. I'm sorry, I completely forgot her. And Professor Brandy Pierce as well, Professor Laura Hosner.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My next question, I want to go back to what Michael was saying about public health and inequities, because I think a lot of us are seeing that in society right now, especially as we are dealing with the pandemic. So Michael, could you talk about some ideas that you're seeing from the School of Public Health to address these concerns?
Yeah, and certainly, yeah, COVID has just showed the world the magnitude of the iniquities and the institutionalized racism that underlies much of those iniquities, and this is also causes to like really rethink about, these iniquities are not new, right? They've been with us for such a long time, and in public health, we've been trying so hard over so many decades to like try to address these iniquities. The question is whether whether we're doing the right thing, whether we're really bringing about real change in the world. And I'll give you a personal example. So I am an OBGYN by training. I was a professor at UCLA for about 15 years, where my research really focused on looking at disparities in maternal mortality and infant mortality. As you know, African-American women is still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy and childbirth, and an African-American infant is still more than twice as likely to die in the first year of life. And that disparity has been going on for so long, and we still haven't been able to do very much about it. And so as an OBGYN, and then later on, I joined the Obama administration as the head of maternal and child health for the nation. So I got a chance to travel all over the country and working with communities like Flint and Oakland, and lots of different communities that are characterized by these really high rates of maternal and infant mortality. And when you go into these community meetings, like when you actually hear, listen to the community voices, you know that it's the institutionalized racism that's manifested in differential access to not just healthcare, but housing and education and nutrition and opportunities. Like I was saying earlier, the social conditions which people can be healthy. It's that differential access that's the root cause of a lot of the health disparities. And yet most of us who are trained in medicine, most of us who are trained in public health, really don't know what to do with institutionalized racism. So we end up going back to the easy stuff, right? So for 20, 30 years, enhanced care coordination, and that may in fact be why we're making such little progress in terms of addressing health disparities. And so I think there's really rethinking in the field about if we really want to achieve health equity in this country, if we truly want to improve population health for all, it's not just about improving healthcare, but it's about how do we tackle the institutionalized racism. How do we dismantle racist institutions in healthcare, in public health, in society that's going to truly help us advance health equity in this country and around the globe? So that's the challenge to the next generation, right? We, my generation tried really hard, and I don't think I don't think we made that much progress. So we really need change making. We really need to think differently and think about how do we bring about the kind of transformative change that would allow us to have genuine health equity and social justice in this country and around the world.
And do you see anything, I know the next generation are very special and will be better equipped and more aware of some of the issues than we were. Do you see anything that's that you find that gives you hope?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing Sejal give me hope. The students that we're seeing in classes give me a lot of hope. They think differently. They're asking the hard questions They're like really challenged the way that we've been doing things in the past. And I think that all of that really give me a lot of hope. And they're like really getting us to rethink how we educate, right? And that's why this whole like Changemaker initiative really resonated with me, because like if we actually want to go out and dismantle institutionalized racism, it's going to take a lot more than the world-class education in epidemiology and biostatistics. Those are important change-making tools. So don't get me wrong, but you need a lot more than that, right? So how do you bring about organizational systems change? So some of the key things that we've been talking about: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, community organizing. All of these are incredibly important kind of skills and tools for the next generation of change makers to have if we truly want to eliminate health disparities and achieve health equity and social justice in this country.
Thank you, Michael. My next question is for Linda, and it pivots on the same topic. So in your field, what changes do you see, positive changes do you see are going to be made as a result of the pandemic?
Again, love that question. And what I really like about the fact that, you pose that question is it fits squarely within what we're doing in the School of Social Welfare and what we think other schools are doing nationally, and asking themselves the hard question: are we in the discipline of social welfare, are we addressing the most relevant issues? And in what ways are we holding ourselves accountable for doing that? So piggybacking on what Michael said, I see this within our school and within the profession nationally. People are holding themselves accountable for really taking the deep dive around anti-racist kinds of issues and thinking about issues of equity. We can't assume that just because we use the terms like social justice and social welfare, that means that we have a deep understanding of the processes that affect the individual lives of folks, as well as the institutional lives over time. So within social welfare, we are tackling that. And in our school, we're doing more than performance. I remember, and I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. I remember when the racial reckoning first was growing in terms of its momentum around the killing of George Floyd. And I have to say, we have very passionate and intelligent, spunky students in the School of Social Welfare. And, one of the first things a number of students came to me and said is, Dean Burton, we need to put a list of things that we are going to do about anti-racism on our website. And I shared with them, I said, dear ones, I have lived a slightly little bit longer than most of you, and I have seen the iterations of racial reckoning 4 or 5 times over. One of the initial reactions that people have to racial reckoning is they rush into performance. They rush into listing 5 or 10 definitive things that they're going to do. It looks nice on a website, but the question is, a week later, are they still engaged in those kinds of issues? We are not going to do performance in our School of Social Welfare. We take this seriously. And we are, in the process of retooling around these issues to make sure that the paradigms and the frameworks and the methods and the practices that we are teaching our students and that they really represent the here and now, as well as are nimble enough to adjust to what will be happening in the future as tools that our students at all levels should have in their toolkit to truly engage in change making, not only at the individual level, but at the institutional level as well.
Thank you. And thank you for your words of wisdom about the lists and following through. I think we all feel an onus to follow through. So thank you. Jenna, my next question is for you. And we're seeing students back on campus for the first time. It's exciting. But what changes do you see may be happening in LNS as we take some of the lessons we've learned from the pandemic and we integrate them into our curriculum, our way of teaching, our modes of instruction?
Yeah, thank you, Oliver. I am going to answer that, but I first just would like to pivot back to something that Linda was saying, if you don't mind, which is the point that Linda was making about asking deep questions first, not racing to the end, not assuming that we know what changes we need to make, but taking this process slowly and being sure that we've brought everyone into the conversation. I think this also speaks to what Michael was saying earlier, that often we try to solve too small of a problem. We often we often jump to an answer for the problem immediately before us without taking the time and really doing the deep work of stepping back and bringing in all of the relevant issues and the broader structures and all of the relevant participants. And I just really applaud both Michael and Linda for the way they have said that, but the way they have really shown it in their leadership in their schools of doing that work, and just want to underline for everyone the importance of that bigger and deeper step. The College of Letters and Science we are also trying to think through what does it mean to approach a liberal arts education in the 21st century. The term liberal arts goes all the way back to the classics, and in some ways our ways of educating remain profoundly classical. And that just as change making is really important, sometimes sustaining things that we've done in the past are really important. And so part of what I've been thinking a lot about is the important part of change making that is deciding what needs to change and what needs to not change. And so we're beginning now to work within the undergraduate division and then eventually to build the college as a whole to think about what a liberal arts education should mean today and for us. Is that affected by the pandemic? Absolutely. Is it affected by the most recent round of racial reckoning? Absolutely. Is it affected by thinking about climate change? Absolutely. And it's also affected by our questions, our thinking about what kinds of dispositions do we want to inculcate our students in? What kinds of skills and knowledge do they need? What kinds of skills and knowledge do they need, but also what kinds of abilities do they need in order to get skills and knowledge that we don't know about yet? And I think that's really the hard challenge, is to think, or one of the hard challenges for undergraduate education is that we are educating students for worlds we haven't seen. And so thinking about how do we prepare students to face challenges that we don't know the answers because we don't even know the questions. And so that's really, I think, what we're thinking about. And in that sense, this last year of unbelievable uncertainty and struggle, it's just, I think, underlined for us that we're trying to teach, but we also have to learn.
Thank you, Jenna. And I also, on the same theme, Sejal, how have you learned during the pandemic? And how do you think it's going to change how you learn and maybe the type of courses you're going to take in the future?
I think it's such a great question. I had my first in-person class yesterday, and it was so exciting. I finally understood what all the seniors were talking about how, pandemic learning isn't real learning. But I think I also disagree to a very large, extent. I feel like everyone was trying to do their best during the pandemic, which was something that you might not see in person, from all the amazing professors and faculty to students as well. It was a very challenging time for everyone, but you truly saw everyone doing their best. And I think that was one value which was instilled in us during these past 1.5 years. But it's really exciting to be back in person, to be able to meet all these faculty members who have so much knowledge to impart, to be learning about these issues. And honestly, so I was in my class today, and I was trying to talk to my professor about how we can potentially try and prevent recessions such as COVID in the future. And that is a hard question to ask, right? Because how do you prevent something when you don't even know it's coming? You can't predict it. You cannot predict a pandemic. But she had such an amazing answer to give. And I think it really got me thinking, as well as the other students in the class thinking. So as long as we have classes like these that, that encourage students to think and ask questions, that encourage my peers to speak out what's on their mind, we should be on a good path, I think. Also, making sure that all these, different things that we are speaking up about as a society, be it LGBTQ plus rights, be it, environmental change, climate change, be it women's rights, anything, Asian American rights, anything that we are speaking up about as a society that also reflects in our academic learnings. I think that is also something which is really important.
Thank you. And we just have a few more minutes left, so I'm going to do one final round of questions. And the question is, what's your best advice for our Berkeley Changemaker? And just as I've been following this order all the way through, I'll put Michael on the spot first.
Get outside of your comfort zone. So I think if you're afraid of public speaking, take a communication class or join the Toastmaster. If you don't like math, take classes in statistics and data analysis. Challenge yourself, put yourself out there. This is time in college, in grad school, to take some intellectual risk, build new muscles, put new tools in toolbox that's going to help you become an effective change maker in the world.
Thank you, Michael. Linda?
I would add to what Michael said, 3 things. First and foremost, make sure that you listen. And when I say listen, really hear what people are saying to you. Secondly, be careful who you allow to validate you. Know that everyone in the world is not going to like you and love you, but make sure whatever context that you are in, you command respect. And third, be open to disruption. Don't see and walk into disruption in a fearful mode. Think about disruptions as the disruptions we have been experiencing for the last couple of years now as an opportunity, and an opportunity to rethink, reframe, and retool.
Thank you. Jenna?
Man, those are really good. I think the only
They were really good.
They were really good. I think the only other thing I can add is to be compassionate with yourself and forgive yourself, because this work is really hard. If it were easy, other people would have already done it. And it's hard. And that means that we're going to mess up sometimes. And it's one thing to dust yourself off and keep going. That's good. You got to do that. But also forgive yourself. I think that's the other piece that I would add.
And so, Jewel, I'm just going to change the question slightly because I got an email this morning from a high school student who's applying to college, and they were asking for their best advice So if you were a student, you've applied to many colleges, what would you say to the students who are now about to enter the fall and are about to apply to college? And what's the best advice you could give those future Berkeley changemakers?
That is a really hard question, but also I think a really important one. So thank you for posing that. I think the most important advice that I would give to future students who are applying to Berkeley or any other colleges is don't be afraid to be vulnerable. So a lot of times in college applications, we feel the need to kind of dress up our achievements and dress up, whatever we have done to try and make it seem better for the person on the other side of the table. Do not do that. So you getting selected to college is honestly a two-way road. It is not just about, you getting into the best university in the world. It is also about the best university in the world getting to have you. So it is all about making sure that you fit into that university. It's a learning experience. You're going to be spending 4 years of your life at this place. You want to make sure that you're happy there and, you're learning the best possible things that you can. So, and you can only do that if, and only make sure that that happens is if you're authentic in your application and vulnerable in your applications to these universities, because it might seem like this is really phony advice and okay, like your dream university is your dream university, but trust me, even a few months down the line, you will appreciate where you end up, because you will realize that sooner or later that this was the place that you were supposed to be, and this is contributing to your growth some way or the other.
Thank you very much. And with those wonderful words of wisdom about also Jenna's comment about forgiveness, Michael's comments about pushing yourself, we end this wonderful campus conversation. I'd like to thank the panelists for joining me today. It's been my honor and privilege to be the moderator for this wonderful event. And for those of you who are watching us online, thank you for your engagement. Thank you for being here today with us. And we wish you a wonderful rest of the fall semester of 2021. Thank you all so much. And as always, go Bears.